All right, folks, welcome into the AfterSchrock. So we'll have a little bit of fun today. Um, Etymology of lollygagging. I want to find out, where did the term lollygagging come from? Oh, of course, mid-19th century, unknown origin. That's the official. We all know what it means. It means to dilly-dally. Oh, lolly meaning tongue and gag meaning deceive or trick. Lollygagged or lollygagging. So tricking someone into thinking you're being productive when you're not could be called lollygagging. Okay, so that's what mom always meant. Why aren't you cleaning your room? Why are you lollygagging around? Oh, okay. So lolly meaning tongue and gag to deceive or trick. Lollygag. There you go, guys. You've learned something new today on the Compute This AfterSchrock program. All right. So the other day, we're standing in the kitchen, and my son Lucas, he's 11 months old, or excuse me, 13 months old. A year and a month is 13, not 11. Add, don't subtract. And he had a plastic spoon, and my wife was holding him, and he turns around, and they're pretending to eat, and it's, oh, look at the cute baby. He's like, oh, that's a spoon. Oh, yummy, you try now. Back and forth, back and forth. And he just takes that spoon and just shoves it right in the lovely Kimberly's mouth, and she's like, ugh. Right down to the back of the throat. She's like, I literally just got gagged with a spoon. And he's like, one of those things like back in the day, you'd hear like mom say, oh, grandma or whatever, gag me with a spoon. Gag me with a spoon. Let's see where that comes from. An expression of disgust or annoyance, the phrase is usually attributed to Southern California's Valley Girls, young women living in the San Fernando Valley in the 1970s and 80s. Gag me with a spoon. That food smells horrible. So yep, it's a Valley Girl thing. That's where we know where that comes from, but we don't know where lollygagging comes from. But two different gagging references. There we go. Now your day is complete. All right, so I'm here to answer any questions you have, things that didn't fit during the program. We managed to get through most of everything. I kind of brushed over all the security stuff. Let's see, mobile, Chrome, Safari, and Firefox failed to show phishing warnings for more than a year. Google Safe Browsing didn't show phishing warnings for mobile browsers between mid-2017 and mid-2018. So Google has a service that they give away for free that detects this stuff, and everybody was relying on it, and it just went down for a year and nobody noticed. That's why you need to have a service that you pay for that has a responsibility to stay online and protect you, and that's what Semantic Endpoint does. In fact, yesterday, while I was getting show prep done for the show, I had an email that comes in. I get email alerts when one of my customers gets attacked. And sure enough, the Semantic Endpoint on their desktop computer stopped one of these phishing attacks. It was a full screen pop-up tried to come up on her screen to tell her to call the 800 number for tech support or whatever. And Semantic Endpoint killed it before it even got on the screen. On your computer, we have thing, Alt F4, you can do that. On your phone, though, if it changes your home page and it makes it one of those full screen Chromeless windows, there's nothing you can do. You uninstall the browser, you reinstall it, you have to delete the phone data. You can fix it, but it's a process, it's a procedure. Most people aren't going to fix it on their own at home. They're going to take it somewhere and have it fixed. Why even mess with it when you can just have the phone protected in the first place? Oh yeah, that Tim Hawkins video on lollygagging is awesomely funny. You should watch that. The lovely Kimberly made a reference to that up above here in the comments. You should watch that. How do you deal with foil hat wearers that think the viruses are written by the antivirus companies? Okay, Mark, this is hilarious because that was actually one of the first calls we ever got on Compute This. So way back in the KFOR 1240 days with Kobe Mac and everything, we had a caller call in, and he's like, I think the virus companies make these viruses so they can sell us their antivirus software. And my response at the time was, well, they're doing a terrible job then because no one seems to know they need antivirus. And he was like, no, that's part of their marketing campaign, you see? Yeah. So it's, yeah, 6 of one, half a dozen of another. The problem is the virus company, the antivirus companies are not making the viruses. They don't have to. There are enough bad guys out there making enough nasty viruses to keep everybody busy for a very long time. In fact, that's one of the reasons why one of the stories I didn't quite deem this one as vital to get on the air today, but the Russian military is moving to Astra Linux. a Linux variant rather than using Microsoft Windows, because they're afraid that the U.S. government can see everything that goes on through Windows. And here's the thing. I'm not going to go off on a huge tangent on the Chinese trade war and everything like that. And there's something that I think is lost a lot on in all this. You look at all these things through an economic perspective, which is the lens we've been looking at the China trade war through. It's going to cost more money to get things. There's tariffs on imports and exports, everything like that. There is a fundamental difference between the Chinese government and the way that the Chinese government operates and the way that the American government operates and the way that the Russian government operates. Fundamental differences. Is the United States government perfect? No. Has the United States government done boneheaded, stupid things in the name of security or power or whatever? Yes. Does the American government attempt to spread its influence around the globe, sometimes in imperialistic ways? Yeah, they do. We do. However, there are things happening in China that are fundamentally evil. Like evil. Go to war and stop it, evil. Concentration camp, evil. And I'm not going to go into all of them on the program because I don't want to give you a downer on your Sunday morning. But you can do your own research and your own Google searching. Do a quick Google search for the Chinese organ tourism, organ transplant tourism. And you'll find out why they take a blood sample from all those Uyghurs that they put in the concentration camps before they put them in there, so they know their blood type, their inventory. It's kind of amazing. You can get an organ transplant in China by you get it organized, and they already have your organ before you were even en route to China. Like your surgery is scheduled before you land. How do they know they have an organ? You can do your own research and figure. I mean, the more research, the more you look into this stuff, the more you'll absolutely just be mind blown that, yeah, China's a huge economy, and the Chinese government are not nice, reasonable people. They are not. The Russian government is been described more like a mafia run thing. There's the boss at the top, Putin, and all of his underlings below are his henchmen, basically, that do the bidding, and the government moves forward. There's a set of rules. As long as everybody plays by the rules, everybody can make a lot of money and have a good time. Of course, the people at the top make the most money. That's the Russian government. You have the Chinese government, which is as close to an Orwellian authoritarian state as you can get. And then you have the United States government. For all of its failings and all of its inequities and its potential for racism or divisiveness or political instability, whatever you want to say, for the most part, you can get up in the morning, you can go to work, you can do your thing, you can work hard, you can cash your paycheck, you can spend your money on what you want to spend it on. For the most part, you can say what you want to say without fear of any kind of retribution, and you can raise your family in peace. And that's just not the case in a great chunk of the world. It really isn't. So when you start, it's easy to get down on the things about America that you seem, or that seem to be not great or not perfect. But when you view what we have here through the lens of what is available elsewhere, you'll realize that this is the best, worst place you could possibly live, for a lot of reasons. So anyway, so again, I said I wasn't going to go on a tangent on it, then I kind of did, so I'll stop that now. But so yeah, when you're watching the trade war stuff, just keep that in the back of your head, that maybe not everything is completely financially motivated here. All right, so questions. I'm here to answer your questions. I'm sure you guys have some questions about the Semantic Endpoint Mobile. Here's the thing. I want you guys as my AfterSchrock listeners are some of my most supportive listeners. We have literally done 2 installations of Semantic Endpoint over the Schrock Desk on Android devices. It's going to be a little choppy the first few times the guys do it. Once they get a couple reps under their belt, they're going to be great. Inside the service center, it's pretty easy to do. You can come in. If you have an Android phone, you don't have to do it over the Schrock Desk. You can actually come in. The thing that I'm worried about is, we're only open 5 hours on a Sunday, so we are typically staffed down a little bit. We tried to keep the staffing light because, families have church, we try to give people the time they need with their families. We're only open for 5 hours. It's more of like a pickup drop-off day is what it was originally intended for, to give you guys another option to come in and get your stuff on a weekend when you don't have to work. Well, then there's work on the bench. We're going to do the work, right? So my fear in my head here is there's going to be a line out the door this morning at one of the service centers. And there's going to be like 1 or 2 techs in there madly installing semantic endpoint on phones while their phone is ringing and they're talking on a headset and they have a line out the door. If something like that happens, please be patient. I don't know that that's going to happen. Please be patient. We're going to have the option to install the semantic endpoint. You can buy it online and take care of the transaction stuff through your AfterSchrock account. That way you've got a record in your AfterSchrock account that you purchased your semantic endpoint that you can look up at home. You never have to call us to check what date it expires or anything like that. You'll have all that in your AfterSchrock account. Right now, if you buy it in the service center, you do have to call and check that. We're going to unify all that eventually, but give us time. In the meantime, though, what happens is if you buy it through the website, we'll put you in the queue to contact. We'll call you and say, hey, are you ready to do your endpoint installation? We just need you to get on your phone real quick and tap a few buttons for us, and then we'll be able to get remotely connected, and then we can take it from there. We can do that on Android devices, not on Apple phones. Apple phones do have to come into the service center for us to install the security on. $65 is the price to install it on a phone. It will never be that cheap again. That's literally below our cost when you consider the labor of the technician, the cost of the AfterSchrock desk connection, the cost of the subscription to us. It's below our cost. So that's why we normally charge $160 to install the first installation of the AfterSchrock or the semantic endpoint. We have too many products that start with S. Wonder why. So when we install semantic endpoint the first time, it's usually $160. So right now this month we're doing our endpoint special on computers. So you can get it put on your computer for $99. It's $60 off this month only for computers. But it's stupid cheap on phones this month. It's $65 on your phone. All you have to do is bring your iOS device in or give us a call and we can do it over the AfterSchrock desk with your Android. You could also bring your Android device in if you want to as well. 3 locations. You can find them all on the website. I don't have to tell you guys about that. All right, let's see if we got some questions here. Scrolling down. Carolyn, I have an iPhone. At some time in the future, will you be able to install endpoint over the AfterSchrock desk for those of us who are in the hinterlands? Unfortunately not, Carolyn. This is an Apple thing. Apple will not allow anyone to have remote access to your phone. So we can remotely, so as far as tech support goes, we can remotely connect to your iPhone and we can see your screen. But to do the endpoint installation on your phone right now, we have to actually log into our semantic endpoint portal from your device. And that password, if we were to give it out, would expose everybody else. So we can't give out that password. That's why we have to do it over the AfterSchrock desk or in person in the service center. Now, there may be an option in the future that we can give you a set of instructions on how to download the app yourself, and then we can generate like an installation code. We're working on that right now. You have to understand, we literally moved to this product last month, and we moved almost everybody over to it. Now this month we're introducing the mobile aspect of it, and I've been, like I said, I've been running it on my phone. I think last week during the AfterSchrock I actually showed it on the phone too, so that everybody could see what it looked like. Tangent alert. Lovely, Kimberly. But yeah, let me see if I can pull it up here again. Your device is protected. So yeah, it looks a lot like this. So you can see, if you can, I don't know if you can read that really clearly. It says iHeart Guest is the Wi-Fi network I'm connected to, and the security is good. I'm green across the board. I do have one alert down here, and we're debating changing this in the service center, the security policy. The alert that I'm seeing is because I have a pattern on my screen that I can trace with my finger to unlock my phone if the face unlock isn't working, and it's telling me that pattern is a low security way to unlock the phone, and I should have like a 27-digit passcode of random alphanumeric characters. Okay, I get it. And so it's saying that's a security vulnerability. That's how seriously this app takes your security. So we're thinking in the group policy that we push out to the phones, we may actually lower that requirement a little bit so that you don't have an alert on your phone for something that you have no intention of ever fixing, because it's not that big of a deal. You can also see on the screen here that there is one suspicious network near me. It's loading the map here right now. All right, come on, still loading. The world's slowest Google map. So there's one network near me. So it's saying that I'm in the, gosh, you can't really see that at all. I don't know if I angle it a certain way. You can kind of see it there. So this is the circle, and I am in the middle of the circle here. And there is way down the block right here an unknown Wi-Fi thing that's been active in the last year. And it was active in the last 3 months, actually. So yeah, pretty serious stuff. So if you were passing by that location, your phone might try to auto connect to that network. And if it did, that would be a nasty network. And this is a protection for the man-in-the-middle attack that you see most often in public places like airports and coffee shops, where I have a router hooked up to a backup battery in my backpack, and my router says Starbucks Wi-Fi. And so you come into Starbucks, you want to connect to the Wi-Fi, you connect to Starbucks Wi-Fi. And you're not actually connected to Starbucks, you're connected to the router in my backpack, which is also connected to Starbucks. So you get internet through it, but I'm the man in the middle now, and I can see everything you do. So this is a protection against that. That would be a suspicious network, an unnecessary extra link in the network that shouldn't be there. And that way you can choose not to connect to that network, or Endpoint can actually protect you if you don't know better. You know, if you just don't know what to do, Endpoint will just protect you, which works out really well. All right, I'm going to try to get Endpoint for our 2 computers at home. I think I'm going to have to wait for our devices, though. You know, and honestly, if I had to prioritize, having it on your computers is definitely where the biggest threat vector is. Your computer is still the numero uno way for bad guys to get into your stuff. Let me hit you with another story that we had last week. So you go to the airport. You're chilling at the airport. Your phone is dying, and you need a charger, and you forgot your charger, and hey, look, some dude left his charger here at the airport. He forgot it, and look, it fits my phone. So I'm going to take his charger and just plug it into my phone and get some much-needed battery boost. That charger was left intentionally. That charger has a microchip in it that has malware on it. That malware will not infect your phone. That malware, though, will transfer itself from the charger over the USB cable to your phone as a USB file transfer. And then it basically makes your phone a giant red throbbing virus infection for any computer you ever hook it up to. So if you ever charge off of a computer, or if you have an iPhone, you hook it up for iTunes, that virus is going from your phone now into your computer to infect your computer. So sometimes the phone is the gateway to get to the computer, because the computer is still the #1 place to get infected. But the phone is the conduit, and that's the kind of stuff that the Semantic Endpoint Mobile is going to protect you against. So it's critical. Going forward, guys, I have been cherry picking the stories I share with you every week. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 tabs open right now of mobile problems, mobile viruses, infections, ways that bad guys are trying to get into your phone. All of them are protected by Semantic Endpoint. I only gave you the top 5 most interesting ones, because some of them are so in the weeds. Like the one that I debated about was the Android and iOS devices impacted by new sensor calibration attack. A new device fingerprinting technique can track Android and iOS devices across the internet by using a factory set sensor calibration. This new technique, called a calibration fingerprinting attack, or sensor ID, works by using calibration details from gyroscope and magnetometer sensors in iOS, and calibration details from the accelerometer, gyroscope, and magnetometer sensors in Android devices. According to a team of academics, the reason that Apple likes to calibrate iPhone and iPad sensors on the factory line, it's a process only a few Android vendors are using to ensure the accuracy of the smartphone sensor. So basically, if you have an expensive phone, this is you. If you have a high-end Galaxy phone like an S10, S9, Note 10, 9, 8, Apple iPhone, big one, yeah. The approach works basically by calibration data is called from the factory device calibration data, which uses that as a fingerprint. So now it knows that this is your phone, producing a unique identifier that advertising or analytics firms can use to track any user that as they navigate through the internet. So now if I fingerprint your device, I know this is phone A, and then through some other thing you sign into an account somewhere, now I know you're Mary Smith. Now I know Mary Smith runs phone A, and now if I see phone A pop up anywhere else on the internet, I know Mary Smith is doing something with her phone, therefore I can target better ads toward Mary Smith. Not intended to be a virus, but is definitely a violation of privacy. Imagine that data gets purchased. Imagine a presidential candidate's data gets purchased by a media organization, and the browsing habits of this presidential candidate for the last 20 years get called up. Wow, that could be fun. I mean, you know darn well that Congress would be subpoenaing that right now. I'm surprised they haven't already. So that's one that was kind of in the weeds, and I glossed over it because it was, not for general radio consumption. The challenge here is that your phone is going to be the next battleground, and that you already have the probes, the attack probes going in. You have the stone monkey viruses already tried, already done. Now you have the attack probes coming in. And so semantic endpoint is here to protect your device. The challenge we've had in the past is, like I said, I will preach to people, and Thomas, I understand stuff costs money, and I'll tell people you need to have it. And people will say, oh, I'll get to it eventually, and then they never do. That's life. I understand that. It's also life that when you get hit, cleaning it up can cost a couple $100, and then you still have to get protected. It's way cheaper to get protected, especially under a $65 sale. It's way cheaper to get protected while it's on sale than it is to wait till after you get hit with something, or you have to buy a new phone, or you're like any of these poor people who are buying Huawei phones right now. Oh my gosh, I would not touch a Huawei phone right now. Number one, obvious Chinese spying implications. Number two, when Google, in 90 days, Google's going to cut all Android support for Huawei phones. When that happens, and I have no doubt that's going to happen, when that happens, there'll be no more security updates, which means Huawei is going to have to try to take over updating the Android operating system, or more likely they'll start developing their own operating system, which is going to lead to a whole nother playground of nastiness. So, I mean, if you have a Huawei phone running Android, basically you've got a 90-day expiration stamp on your head right now. Japanese telecom companies are no longer offering Huawei phones because of this. People online are thrilled. They're able to go out online and buy the latest gen Huawei Mate phones for up to $200 off retail, because nobody wants them, because everyone's terrified that the Huawei phones are going to be useless in 6 months. So I wouldn't get one of those. Just saying. Not that they're sold in the U.S. that much. For all of our Taiwanese listeners, I wouldn't get one of those. All right, let's see here. Richard, what's the difference of going to the App Store versus Schrock for getting semantic endpoint protection? All right, the difference is, number one, we have a configurable policy. So the default semantic policy is mondo restrictive. You're going to get false alerts coming out your ears about stuff that you're not really alerted about. The sensitivity on the VPN is dialed way too high. So, for example, if you were trying to reset your password for your credit card, you go to the credit card website, you log in, it says, we've never seen this IP address before. We've sent you an email. Click the link in your email from the same device to confirm your identity. You go to check the email, you click the link. You've got a new IP address now, though, because of your VPN, so you can never sign into your credit card site from your device. That's bad. That's going too far right now, okay? So we've dialed down the VPN in the security policy a little bit so that you don't get you get a new IP address each session, as opposed to different IP addresses each time you load a web page. So there's that. We just talked about possibly dialing down the login pattern restriction, things like that. So there's some configuration that you get from a local person who understands that, while security is important, you are also not a diplomat traveling to Beijing. Security is important, but we're going to keep it realistic here. Number two, you get support. You have a virus-free guarantee with Schrock. Something gets through that, if your phone starts doing something crazy, you've got support and backing from Schrock on that. Example, first time I installed semantic endpoint on my phone, it was crashing every 30 seconds, and I was freaked out because I'm like, why is it crashing so much? Oh my gosh. Well, it turns out that basically there was a misconfiguration in the settings. Basically, the default setting for endpoint was trying to override my Samsung Knox software. So we had to tell it in the group policy, don't do that. Work with Knox, because Knox is the Samsung stuff. If you've ever tried to root a Samsung phone so you can get root access and install your own stuff, Knox is like the demon. You can't get past it. So work together with Knox, okay? We change that and it doesn't crash anymore. So there's all kinds of things and tweaks and things that we have done to make this usable for consumers, because you have to remember, a semantic endpoint is software intended for corporate users. It's intended for companies with network administrators who have complete control over the device. So, for example, we have the option when we set up your device to set you up as a corporate device or a personal device. We always select to set you up as a personal device for your own privacy and protection. The reason being, I mentioned we have the option to lock your phone if you lose it. We can lock your phone, so you have to enter a passcode to open it again. That's important because if you lose your phone, you can call us and say, Schrock, can you lock my phone for me? And we can do that. If we set it up as a corporate phone, we also have the capability to wipe your phone. We don't want that capability. I don't want my guys to have the possibility of accidentally clicking the wrong button. I don't want to have the possibility of a rogue employee going in who's ticked off, like the guy that shot a bunch of people, and just start wiping people's phones, because I'm not going to shoot anybody, but I'm going to wipe everybody's phones. I don't want that. If somebody goes in and locks a bunch of phones, you enter the code, it's unlocked, no big deal. Wiping phones is different, so we're not going to do that. Yeah, so basically we've tweaked everything down to make it consumer friendly and usable while maintaining the security of it. And you have the backing of a local company that is basically supporting you in a real-time basis if something goes wrong. Have you ever tried to call Symantec and get transferred to India, or have to deal with chat support? And they even chat with somebody in India. You can't get someone in an English-speaking country to chat with me. It's like, yeah, I'm sure your name is Danny. It was last week. Danny called. Some guy I was chatting with from HP, and his name was Danny. Sure, his name was Danny. Yeah. So yeah. So we don't have a Danny, but we do have lots of other great people in the Omaha, Lincoln, and Papillion service centers that are paid to help you out and keep you up and running. So that's the big difference. I once drove down a Huawei street. Oh, Keith with the humor. You spelled Huawei wrong though. Okay. I see even Foxconn has ceased manufacturing for Huawei. Yeah. So we get a second level of security with your services. Yeah, basically you do. Not only do you have security that if something goes wrong with the phone, we're going to fix it. You've got the backing of a human being that with a physical location, especially if you're close, or the Schrock desk if you have Android, where if something is going wrong with your phone, we can actually remote in and help you with that now, just like we could with a computer. So you get that virus-free guarantee as well. This thing with Huawei is going to get interesting in a way that nobody really anticipates. And the other big thing, China's big retort to this is, if this ban goes into place, Huawei is trying to pretend like it's not a big deal, whatever. If this ban goes into place, Huawei as a company is dead. We're literally talking about killing the largest manufacturer of 5G hardware in the world. And we can do that simply by cutting off the intellectual property that they're so keen on stealing. All we have to do is say you can't give it to them anymore. And now they have to steal it through espionage, and that's a lot harder to do. And no doubt they'll get the update somehow. They'll buy a Samsung phone, and it'll download the new Android, and then they'll rip that software from the Samsung phone and load it on a Huawei phone and violate. They don't care about stealing intellectual property. Watched a show, Trish Reagan on Fox Business had one of the leading commentators from some Chinese lady from a show called The Point in China, and they were basically going head-to-head about trade war stuff. And this goes to the cultural difference. In China, they don't have a problem. We all learn from each other. Why would we reinvent the wheel? When you have a perfectly good wheel and we see you using your wheel, why would we do the research and development required to build a wheel when we could just use what you built already? Why would we do that? Whereas in America, we're like, we spend a lot of money inventing the treads on those wheels that move the waters in a certain direction. We spend a lot of money on the Kevlar belting inside the wheel that prevents punctures on the road from debris on the roadway. That stuff makes our wheel superior to the Chinese wheel, and therefore you want to steal all of that. You're not just taking the concept of the wheel or the smartphone or the 5G transceiver. You're taking all of the technology that comes with it. Even in some cases, like we talked about last week, Huawei is literally copying Cisco user manuals, including the typos, to release with their gear, because they've stolen the Cisco software that runs the Cisco switches, and they built a knockoff Cisco switch, loaded Cisco software rebranded with Huawei on the switch, and they don't have to write a new manual because all the options are in exactly the same place as the Cisco options. So they stole the Cisco manual too. They literally had all the bugs that were in the Cisco software. So Cisco patches their stuff when they find the bugs, and then Huawei has to release their own patches because the Cisco patches have to be rewritten and released for Huawei. So Cisco or Huawei doesn't have to do any of the research and development on the equipment. They don't have to do any of the manuals, the technical writing. There's actually jobs like called technical writer. Their job is to write manuals. They don't have to do any of that stuff. When there's a security problem, they don't have to keep up on that and patch it. They just wait for Cisco to release a patch, and then they take that patch and they change the logo to Huawei and they push it out to their devices. Literally, that's what's going on in China. So if the United States cuts off Huawei from Android, from processors like Intel chips, if they cut them off from Micron memory technology, which is the memory technology that's used in almost every graphics card, and it's an American company who makes their stuff in China because it's cheaper to make it in China. And as a result, they've had to partner under Chinese law. You can't just open a business in China. You have to partner with a Chinese company. And that Chinese company is responsible for organizing and basically forming a corporation in China, and then you two are partnered together, and then you share the profits. The problem is this is what the forced technology transfer is. Micron is required to divulge to the Chinese company how they make their secret sauce, how they make their memory do its thing. Once that company has that tech, they don't need Micron anymore. So if something like this happens and Micron is not allowed to participate anymore, that Chinese factory that was created to make the latest Micron chips can still make the latest Micron chips and just use them in China. Now, it's going to take 2 or 3 years as the technology improves and we develop new stuff every 6 months. China won't have that new technology, so they will fall by the wayside as they work through their backlog of inventoried components and everything like that. So China says, America, if you do that to us, we're going to cut you off from rare earth elements. So rare earths, they're used in motors mostly, a lot of motors. So everything from washing machines to wind turbines. They're used in every cell phone has rare earth elements in it. Every missile that we shoot off of an Aegis carrier has these rare earths in it. They're all there. And so if you cut off America from rare earths, we do have one rare earth mine in America. It's in Northern California. That one rare earth mine exports their ore to China for processing. So we don't have a rare earth refinery in America, probably because it's in California and you don't open refineries in California. You just don't. This is a great opportunity from someone like a North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, to take some of this vast unused space and open up a rare earths refinery. Now, the problem is China is refining so much rare earth right now that there is no need for another refinery. They're doing it, they're refining so much, they're refining more than anybody needs. So you can't really open a factory or a refinery to compete with the Chinese refinery because China they'll just undercut the price. They'll drive the price down and you won't be able to operate in America. It's too expensive. So that's why this company, this mine, sends all their ore to China for processing. Well, if suddenly that's cut off, we're going to need to have a way to process rare earths in America just for our defense complex. So a government subsidized rare earth mine would be something that you're talking about a country that we have giant underground caverns filled with helium in case we ever have to launch dirigibles. That's true. That was a defense thing, like back in the day. That's why there's a worldwide shortage of helium, and the United States has been slowly saying, okay, maybe we don't need. They found these caves underground, and they just pumped them full of helium, and then sealed them off. The Earth's a little lighter for it, and so basically now they're like, we can release a little helium from the caverns. Our need for dirigibles is much lower than, we do have some defense need for helium. Then it's important to have our own supply of helium. That's why we have the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, our own supply of oil. This is before we're the world's #1 exporter of oil. That was before that. So we wanted to make sure we had enough oil. We probably should have a rare earth refinery. It's something that probably could be done through executive order. That probably should be done like now. Don't wait 90 days. Do it now. If you're President Trump, if you're listening, do it now. So yeah, that's basically how China plans to strike back, figuring that if they can bring pain to American consumers in the form of the inability to get a new smartphone because there's a shortage of them, that would be an effective way to stop the trade war. Now, the problem is China right now, with what we're doing with China, they are looking for ways to cause temporary pain to the American consumer. Higher prices, or inability to buy a new smartphone or a new washing machine or put up that new wind turbine because you can't get the motors because there's no rare earths. There are FedEx in China, they're threatening FedEx now. FedEx was diverting some packages back to the United States, apparently, it seems. And so China's put them on a warning list now, that if things keep going south with America, we might end FedEx in China, that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff is temporary. That market share can be regained because there is nobody that does it as well as FedEx and UPS in the world. DHL is a close third, but no one does it as good as those two do. No one makes a better phone than Samsung and Apple. Huawei makes a better phone, but they're using it because they have the tech from Samsung and Apple. Nobody makes better phone operating systems in the United States of America. Nobody makes better computer operating systems in the United States of America. So if China gets cut off from all that, what ends up happening is people in America are still going to demand these products. So manufacturers are going to have to move their supply chains to other countries. Some of these jobs will come back to America. Most of them will not. Most of them will go to other Asian countries like Taiwan or the Philippines or Malaysia or Korea, where they can get the same technical workforce, have the same light environmental restrictions, have the same inexpensive labor, and make their products there without, and basically cutting China out of the supply chain. Once you cut China out of the supply chain, the reason everybody went to China was the labor was cheap. But over the last 10 years, the labor's been getting more and more expensive steadily. And it's been an ongoing problem for China. We don't want to make it in China because it's cheaper to make it in the Philippines, honestly. But man, all of our stuff is in China. The factory's in China. Everything is there. It costs so much to move it. Let's just keep making it in China until it gets too expensive that we have to move everything. This is that decision point where companies are making decisions for products they're going to put on the market 3 years from now. They're saying, we're going to need to build a facility in one of these other countries to manufacture these products, because this is not going to be a quick trade war that gets in one and done kind of thing. This could drag on through, the next president of the United States, whoever that might be. So those companies have to move their supply chains. And once those supply chains move out of China, getting them to move back is a very expensive process. As a result, China is looking at a permanent loss as opposed to Americans' temporary inconvenience. Keep that in mind. As much as China will bustle and bristle and treat us with respect, the damage that's being done to the Chinese economy is permanent damage. The damage that's being done to the American economy, while uncomfortable, and I do not like, China is not paying the tariffs. I'm paying the tariffs. I write that check. I write that $1,200 check and send it to the Treasury Department. So the money that's going to the farmers from the tariffs, that's coming from American companies, not from China. Let's have some truth. With that said, that is temporary pain. That is pain that does not feel good, but it's not going to end my business, and I'm going to be here next year still. People moving their manufacturing facilities out of China, that's permanent pain. That's not going to come back in the near term, the near term being a decade to 20 years. So the longer this goes on, the very much worse it's going to be for China. China will very much attempt to ratchet up the pain. There was a lot of, China shifted a lot of economic data. So they just got their first quarter economic numbers, which they're communists. I mean, the numbers are goal-seeked to whatever they're supposed to be. But the numbers were actually bad. They were actually showing manufacturing contraction. And what they did is they took a lot of the orders that were pending for May, and so for April, and they shifted them into March. And so those orders were artificially buoying the first quarter, and the number was still contractionary. In the second quarter, we're going to see some really bad numbers out of China. They had their first bank failure last week. That didn't get reported in any of the mainstream media that I saw. China had to come in and take over a bank because it failed. And it's no worse off than just about every other bank in China. So China is feeling it, and it's not going to end well if it keeps going forward. So anyway, that's that. Lovely Kimberly, that's what a tangent sounds like. All right. So we get second level security still here. All right, cool. Any other questions, guys? I'm going to have to roll it up here. It's 41 minutes in now, so it's probably time for me to get rolling. Let me see. The text messages were rolling in. Let's see what my... Oh, yeah, I've got Memorial Day flag pickup with the Scouts today. Forgot about that. So my wife is reminding me that I have to take my my young scout to go pick up some flags at the graveyards for the Memorial Day. They put the flags. Scouts put the flags out. The Scouts pick the flags up. Then they check the flags, make sure they're in good repair. Any that are not get disposed of properly. Any that are get properly stored for usage next year on Memorial Day. So if anybody has any questions, the time to ask them is now, and the time is rapidly expiring. Questions going once. Questions going twice. All right. Sold. Questions? No. All right. So thank you for joining us in the Aftershock. I appreciate it, guys. Please remember to like and share the show. It means a lot to us. It really helps us get the word out, especially with something as important. I'm sorry this show was a big salesy kind of sandwich. It was more than I would have liked, but it's a new product and a new concept that's really important. And people, I felt like we needed to make sure that people understood how important it was. Knowing full well that people kind of tune in and tune out every 15 minutes to the show, I had to say it over and over and over again. Next week won't be so bad, I promise. But the sale is going on this month at Schrock, and after this month is over, the sale prices will be gone and they'll go up to the normal $160 per install. So if you do have mobile devices that you want to get installed with Endpoint, make sure you get it done this month. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you again next Sunday.